Hey guys, Graham here with The Rendezvous, and we are going through the birth story, talking about Jesus. This seems to be the right week to do it anyways. So for today's video, you were supposed to read the book of Luke, chapter 1, verses 26 through 38. So if you haven't do that, hit pause, check that out either in a physical Bible or the Bible app. Part of my hope in this is that you will actually be reading it. Even though it is Christmas break, I know you don't want to do any reading, but it's important to learn how to read the Bible. So finding verses and reading those and beginning to process those on your own is important. So take a second and read the book of Luke, chapter 1, verses 26 through 38, and then we'll jump right into this. So this is the part of the story where an angel appears to Mary and says, hey, you're going to have a baby, which is kind of crazy because Mary wasn't doing the types of activities you would do in order to have a baby. All right, use your own imagination there. So an angel says you're gonna have a baby, and we don't know why God chose Mary. Like the Bible doesn't specifically tell us like, oh, God chose Mary because she had the right birthday or she drew the right lottery number or whatever it might be. It doesn't tell us at all. And honestly, God is sovereign. That means he's in control of everything. He has the ability to do almost whatever he wants. So he doesn't really need to give us a reason of why he chose Mary. But I'm willing to bet if I had to take a guess, it has to do with her character a little bit. I'm willing to bet that it has something to do with just kind of her personality and maybe how she has honored God in the past. Now, it doesn't specifically say that, but it does say this. After an angel shows up and says, Mary, you're going to be pregnant with a baby that belongs to God, right? Which is a crazy thing, like on 1,000 levels, that's a crazy statement to make. Oh, not to mention, Mary was probably 13 or 14 years old at the time, right? So this is a crazy thing already. And this is Mary's response in verse 38. This is what she says. She says, I am the Lord's servant. May your word be fulfilled. What? Like, this is crazy that this is going to happen to her. And that's her response. And that's what makes me think that this is a good kind of insight into Mary's character. Now, the Catholic Church would say God chose her because she was sinless. Okay? We don't know that she was actually sinless. It doesn't say that specifically anywhere. But I'm willing to bet, again, I'm just making an assumption, that she probably had a really good character and reputation. She probably was a very, very good person. Sinless, I don't know about that. But was she a very good person and had the right character? I think so. And I think God was honoring that. And what's interesting is that God uses this phrase in here that he says, this is going to be God's son, or the Son of God. And there's many times throughout the Gospels, the stories of Jesus, where Jesus is referred to as the Son of God. And I'm going to be honest, that actually kind of messed me up a little bit when I first started reading the Bible or studying theology, stuff like that, because I view the son of something as like, hey, the physical father and the physical son, right? I am a son. I have a father. I am also a father, and I have a son. I played a role in him becoming that person. And it's almost like a greater or less than kind of relationship when you think about it a little bit. The father's always a little greater than the son and stuff like that. And I think that kind of messed me up a little bit in my world of theology, because I think what it did was it didn't help me when I go to think of God as one being, right? When I think of the Father and the Son, it makes me think of two things. But we know that God is actually one being. So why is Jesus called the Son of God? And why would they use that phrase if it really is just one being and God coming to earth? And there's a little bit of insight into here. If you've ever read any of the Old Testament, which can be very confusing, the Old Testament will have these series of like genealogy, right? So it's like, so-and-so was the son of so-and-so, who was the son of so-and-so, who was the son of so-and-so. And if you've ever read that, you're like, what is God telling me in this? And the reality is, I think he's just telling you some history, just because that was something that they documented back then. But the reality of it too is sometimes they will speed through the genealogy process and they'll just say so-and-so was a son of David or a son of Abraham or something like that. Even though there was like thousands of years distance, they still refer to so-and-so as a son of David or a son of Abraham or something like that. And what they were doing was they weren't saying like, yes, they were a physical son of them, because they weren't. What they're actually doing is saying, hey, they are like David. They are like Abraham, right? Maybe a little bit of it would be like if you were from like the royal family in the UK, if you were from like a descendant of George Washington or something like that, they might say, oh my gosh, you're like George Washington. You're like your great-great-grandfather. You are on par with that person, right? So this is kind of an idea that they're doing here when they call Jesus the Son of God. Like, was he the actual Son of God? Well, kind of. I mean, he didn't have a physical father on earth besides Joseph, who adopted him. But he was also the Son of God in the sense that he was equal. He was from God. He was from the line of God. And that always threw me off a little bit, because I want to say father and son when it's actually like, no, father and son. Like, they were equal. They are combined. They're one thing. So tomorrow we're going to continue our birth story, but we are actually going to jump books. The other book we talked about that has a lot to do with this is the book of Matthew. And so tomorrow we're going to read from the book of Matthew, chapter 1, verses 18 through 24. So we're going to mash up Luke and Matthew a little bit tomorrow. Book of Matthew, chapter 1, verses 18 through 24, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.